lucky enough to know Josephine Baker for 40 years. We were friends and confidants. And I knew the down and the upside of her. There was always something sad about Josephine, something missing. She was never completely happy. For I think she never found what she was looking for, which was love. She came into her own during the time when the black trek from other parts of the country to Harlem began. With World War I, Southern blacks came north to work. It was a great migration. The whites left Harlem, leaving their big brownstones to the blacks. Josephine joined that migration. George Balanchine, the great dancer and choreographer, once said, "She is like Salome. She has 7 veils. If you lift one, there is a second. And what you discover is even more mysterious. And you get to the third, you still don't know where you are. Only at the end, if you keep looking faithfully, will you find the true Josephine." She left home when she was only 15, traveling like a gypsy with the Jones family band. She made a name for herself on Broadway in the first all-black musical, Shuffle Along. Then on to another in the Chocolate Dandies. She loved many, but told me she was only truly in love once. She had her heart set on raising a rainbow family, her rainbow tribe, children of many colors and cultures. And she was criticized by many, but she was loved by tens of thousands. There were 3 faces of Josephine that can be seen throughout her life. First was Tumpy. That was her mother's nickname for her. A sad-looking, round-faced girl. Then there was Josephine, La Baker, haughty, head thrown back, eyes half closed, dressed in either nothing or everything. This unique creature with the looks and the manners of an empress. Last, Fifine, the name some of her friends used to call her. With twinkling eyes and a gentle smile that could tell you life wasn't so bad. And in that smile that you could hear in her voice and see on her face came an invitation to have fun. And she had her ups and downs and ill health, but it was her ability to produce this side of her personality that kept her going and kept the audience coming back. Langston Hughes said simply, she reached out and took everybody's heart into her hands. She was like a black chaplain. And some have said she would step on anybody's shoulders to get what she wanted to get, that she didn't give a damn about me or you or anybody else. But I knew better. She was one of a kind, a pearl in an oyster, a rare orchid, the black orchid. Many times, she talked of a film or a play being done on her life, in her lifetime. But it never came to pass.
If they do it, let it be a happy thing. Let's not dwell on the sad parts. Forget the details. Who cares on what day I was born or what date I was on a certain show? Just make it so that when I come to see it, I can be happy all over again.
Ain't no more like Madam Billy. Ain't never gonna be no more neither. I've been around for 40 years and I intend to be around for 40 more. Hey, sweetheart, let me have that cake. I want that prize. You know, I might need it in my old age.
It was probably the worst time of my life. In the middle of the night, a race ride. Whites thought blacks were getting their jobs. Many blacks were killed that night. I remember my mother's wash line was set ablaze. I remember Madam Billy's Packard going up in flames.
Josephine, what you want for supper?
I don't much care, Mama.
What? What do you want for supper?
What do I want for supper? Nothing. Nothing for breakfast. I don't want nothing from you ever. I don't want this cheap little place or this cheap little coat that you're making me wear. I sure as hell don't want nobody else's dirty laundry neither.
Josephine?
Oh, Mama. I'm sorry. But how long are we going to stay here taking care of other people's wash? I'm sick of it. We ain't got nothing, we ain't never gonna have nothing. Most of the time, we ain't got any food. Let's just leave it all. And walk out that door.
You know, someday, girl, when you're grown up, you're gonna be real beautiful. You know, one time, when I was in Chicago, where I met your daddy, he took me to a show. I saw all these beautiful color girls just singing and dancing, and I thought, my Josephine could do that. I was happy. Then your daddy left, and here we are. Maybe I could send you up to Chicago. Or maybe even up to New York City. And you could go on up to Harlem and find you a rich man and get married. Then we could all just strut around Harlem.
I went to work as a waitress at the old Chauffeurs Club. And I met a group called the Jones Family Band. They were held over for a second week. But when they left town, I went with them. And it was goodbye St. Louis. Goodbye East St. Louis, too. Yeah, goodbye. I'm leaving here a nobody. But someday, I'm gonna be somebody. And you ain't gonna get to see me neither, 'cause I ain't never coming back here again. Old man Trouble, get out of my way, 'cause I'm coming through.
50 years later, almost to the day, at the last minute, she canceled an engagement in St. Louis and didn't tell anybody why she was doing it. I didn't need to be told. The city fathers had planned a great event. It was to be Josephine Baker Day. They were devastated, then infuriated. Instead, she flew first to Paris, then on to Israel to be the guest of Golda Meir. You see, now, Josephine Baker was somebody. And she traveled with the Jones Family Band, and along the way as a Dixie stepper, became enamored of early jazz. Bessie, Mamie, Trixie, Willie the Lion. Oh, that one was a star, all right, singing such risque songs as, "Oh, oh, Mr. Mitchell, I'm crazy about your sweet poontang. Oh, oh, Mr. Mitchell, you got me going with a bang." Clara, the world's champion mourner, was above all a singer of the blues. Her career paralleled that of Bessie Smith, and they were always well accompanied. They worked with Lemuel Fowler, James Johnson, Louis Armstrong, Fletcher Henderson, and Spencer Williams, who was later to become one of the most important influences in Josephine Baker's career. Josephine was only 15 and didn't have enough age or experience to be on her own.
Good evening. How you doing? Talk to me now. How are you? All right, come on. I went down to the river. I sat beneath the willow tree. Watch it now. All right.
Okay.
Whew.
Think that she's snoring. I fixed the dress. Miss Bessie woke up. I tossed it to her and started backing out the door.
Where you going now, girl?
Home. I'm going home.
Want a job?
Oh, but Miss Bessie, I can't sing or dance. And I ain't no friend of Benny's. I was just a lie. And I ain't never been in no show in Chicago before. That was a lie too.
Girl, I ain't offering you no singing or dancing job. I'm offering you a maid's job. $10 a week and training pay. You want it, you leave tonight. But no smoking, no drinking, and no messing with the musicians.
We traveled on that train to Memphis, Tennessee, and I took care of Bessie. And one night, I got to fooling around, and I swaggered, and I sang, and I bent down and walked behind a pigeon toe, and I tripped. And all this to the music. And the musicians started applauding for me, just like I was in the theater. Even Miss Bessie. And I knew I was good. Back then I hadn't really thought about being in the theater. Then I heard that applause, and I thought, well, it wouldn't be so bad. I guess I could make a living doing this. And everything just came naturally. You know, they say that colored folks have a certain natural rhythm, a natural movement. That's crazy though, because I seen some colored folks who couldn't dance or sing their way out of a paper bag. But for some reason it came naturally to me. The more I did it, the more I liked it. That's just the way it was. Oh, and then there was this other time.
She was very adventurous. There was a bunch of us girls here then. Josephine had the smallest of the 4 bedrooms. People are always saying how she was in the Cotton Club. She wasn't. She was just a chorus girl. During those years, baby, we was all just chorus girls. And Josephine was a natural. She never had no dancing lessons or nothing like that. And she'd do the darndest things. There was this big old ledge outside the dressing room. You know the one down on 50th Street? But one day Josephine said, I'm going to walk that ledge. And she got out and walked from one window to the next.
Josephine once said she thought the other girls were prettier. She always wanted more.
I used to work down at the Green Dragon, a speakeasy. I quit because every morning when I got off of work, I'd have to step over a dead body, and I was too tired to wipe the blood off my feet. Now, it was Mr. Baker, the owner of the club, who told his good-for-nothing son Billy he had to marry Josephine. He said, either you marry her or you get out of my house. So he married her, and she took his last name. Now, they didn't stay together. They never got divorced legally, but she kept his name.
Josephine thought nothing of breaking a contract to meet other demands, or to get out of an engagement she didn't want to be in. She was a free spirit.
After a while, she was with the Town Topics that played down at the plantation. Only 1 block away at Roseland Dance Hall, Louis Armstrong was playing. Josephine used to go down there, and that's when she started doing her famous Charleston routine.
And along came Cicely Blake's Shuffle Along.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We planned a music play that will put black actors and musicians back on Broadway. The prejudice against darker-skinned girls was obvious in the ads they read. One, colored performers, men and women, men who could double in band and orchestra or band the stage, real black men and yellow women, good dressers, on and off stage. From the beginning, the chorus and Shuffle Along had stolen many of the reviews. They talked about how they wiggled and shimmied and flung their limbs about. Once it became a big hit in New York, where it ran for over 500 performances, a second company was sent out on tour. Josephine had auditioned the first time, but was too young. This time, she auditioned again, and she got in as the end girl on the chorus. She soon got her own billing, and the people were taking notice of her performance.
A critic once said she was a little girl on the end. You couldn't forget her once you noticed her, and you could not help noticing her. She was beautiful, but it wasn't her beauty that attracted your eye. Back then, her brown body was disguised in an ordinary chorus costume. But she had a trick of folding in her knees and her eyes. At the most crucial point in the song, I'm Just Wild on Harry, she crossed her eyes. Now, it was nothing very appealing, but it was the folding of the knees and the crossing of the eyes that brought the chorus back for those unforgettable encores.
I'm just wild about
came in with Caroline Dudley Reagan. Williams was one of the great, fantastic figures of early jazz. Born in New Orleans in 1889, he spent his adolescence playing piano in Mahogany Hall, the brothel run by his aunt in Basin Street. It was Spencer Williams who penned the famous Basin Street Blues. Spencer had just been engaged to write some music for an all-black show that was to play in Paris for a season, La Revue Negre, as it was eventually named. Mrs. Reagan was the impresario behind this venture, a wealthy Chicago socialite with a passion for black music and art. Typical of the whites who patronized the Harlem Renaissance, good people who were not sure whether they were insiders or outsiders.
Both Ethel Waters and Gertrude Sanders have been suggested as possible headliners, but they wanted way too much money. So I found Josephine, a chorus girl on Broadway. I moved fast. First, I offered her $125 a week. She refused. So then I offered her $250 and she accepted. I grabbed my extraordinary, beautiful mandarin coat, embroidered in gold from China, a taxi ride, and there I was at Josephine's. Quick, quick, Josephine, the taxi's waiting. We're going to see a great designer, Taipei, who's making you a dress from Paris. Taipei has told me what luck that Miss Baker has been chosen Madame Reagan. She will make you famous. And I put the coat over her shoulders, and she kissed me. She was happy and beautiful, and we were off to Paris to give them a show they can never forget.
They called me Bricktop. I was already in France. I sort of paved the way for all the others who came after me. Josephine and the rest sailed on the Berengaria on September 16, 1925. It wasn't unheard of for an entertainer to go to Europe in those days, but not many did, and hardly any blacks.
I wasn't excited. I wasn't nervous either. I barely knew where Paris was, and I didn't know a word of French. But I traveled to lots of cities in the U.S., and it didn't seem that Paris would be that much different. You know, right up to the last minute, Josephine considered not even going.
I can recall one single day of fear in my life. One day which only lasted 1 hour. Maybe 1 minute. 1 minute when fear grips your brain, your heart, and your guts with such force that everything seems to come apart. That day was September 15th, 1925. The Statue of Liberty disappeared over the horizon. It was over between America and me. Goodbye, New York. Goodbye, Philadelphia. Goodbye, St. Louis. Goodbye, little girl. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Since the early 1900s, artists and writers in France have been taking an interest in African art, indeed all things African. For that infamous dance, the Danse Sauvage, they recruited a dancer from Martinique, Joe Alex. The dance was erotic and slightly comic, but it brought Paris to its knees. And overnight, Josephine Baker was a household name. And artists scrambled to paint her and draw her. And photographers followed her wherever she went. And she became the rage of Paris, and the legend was born.
become well known to curtain men and stagehands who worked on her shows throughout the world. When she wanted that final curtain, she'd follow it up with her eye, and then down again. Then a short snap of her fingers, and a cutting motion with her right arm, and that was that.
Coffee skin, ebony eyes, legs of paradise, a smile to end all smiles. Very hot night, but she, wearing a coat of fur, she turned her eyes on me. Josephine, I said, I am Ernest Hemingway. We danced non-stop the rest of the night.
These poor French, they have never seen the Charleston done by Negroes before. So they went ahead and created their own version of it. It hardly resembles the original. You know, hips pressed together. So one leg crossed, so sticking out there behind. So, waving their hands around. Too long, people have hidden their behinds. They exist. I see no reason we should be ashamed of them.
And the famous, and the soon-to-be famous, became part of Josephine's life.
Have you heard? Josephine's taken up with Count Avatino.
Is he a real count? I heard he was a gigolo.
It's Josephine, and the baker does what she wants. I hear he will be managing her career.
Of course, you cannot marry Josephine. You are still married to little Willie Baker.
It was grand working in the club that spring. We'd hang out all night with practically nothing to do, but sit around and listen to Rick Top and the other musicians tell stories about how they got into show business.
backstage at the Follies when she met him, the Crown Prince of Sweden. He had come to see the famous Josephine Baker, and she did not disappoint. She fell in love with him even though she knew he was married.
For just a moment, everything was so still you could hear a clock tick. He filled the whole room with electricity. You could have lit up half of Paris on me and him alone.
This is my 4th visit. It seems you become more exciting each time.
When he spoke, it was like you poured some warm honey into some hot butter. It was something. God, I just looked at him. He was my cream and I was his coffee, and when you poured us together, it was something. This had never happened to me before. When he looked at me, I felt like I was floating off the floor. And I even heard music. I heard 1,000 violins playing just for him and me. Even when he was saying goodnight, I could hear them.
Thank you, Mademoiselle Baker. Au revoir. Perhaps sometime you can honor us for the visit to Sweden.
My bookkeeper begged me not to go. Not to take a holiday in the middle of the winter. And in the middle of my run at the Follies. He said they may have to close. But I didn't care. I was in love.
And he took her away to the family's country estate. It was the middle of the winter, and they were there in the country, alone. And the rest of the world seemed so far away. And the Crown Prince of Sweden, who was destined to one day become the King of Sweden, pleaded with Josephine to run away with him. He said he understood how she had lived and knew of her life.
We could leave here, you know. We could run away together. I could jump on my white horse and take you to some other country. And we could live there. Happily ever after. That's it. I'll kidnap you from the theater one night. I'll hold you hostage in Bulgaria and Paris. And you will have to shout for me to come and hold you and keep you warm.
Gustav, this isn't going to work with us, is it? When we run out that door, you know who will be waiting. Old man Trouble. He just stands around waiting for me. My mama told me to go to Harlem and find a good man with money and get married and have babies. She
never told me whether I would live happily ever after.
I know what has happened in New York. Is it not your Harlem? People have lost their fortunes in Wall Street and then jumped out of the windows. I have read it in all the dispatches from America.
No, baby. Ain't nobody jumped out of no window in Harlem just because they lost a fortune on Wall Street. If we lived together a lifetime, my darling, I wouldn't be able to explain that to you. I am Josephine of East St. Louis. And you are to become the king of Sweden. And regardless of what we may want, my darling, there's too many people that are going to keep us from getting it. Tomorrow, I go to Patty. They're waiting for me. And you must return home. They're waiting for you. But when I need you, my darling, I'll just call. And you'll put on your armor and jump on your white steed and come rescue me. And we'll run far, far away somewhere. And we'll just live happily ever after.
And Josephine walked to the crystal doors of the ballroom in that big country estate and looked out into the darkness. She stood there shivering, trying to hide her tears. She stood there, shivering. The Crown Prince of Sweden walked to the table and from a large box pulled a full-length wrap and moving toward her, put it over her shoulders. Josephine never wanted this night to end. She turned the knob on the ballroom door and stepped in, standing in a huge room. It was cold, and the prince took a candle from the table and followed her. He set it down and took her in his arms.
My father.
And Josephine heard the violins, and she moved closer to him, and he held her tight. And as though he could hear the violins in Josephine's head, they started a silent waltz in the empty ballroom. She opened the fur wrap he had given her and wrapped them both inside, and the dance continued. The next day, at the the train station where she had first come to him. Josephine entered the same private train car. She looked out the window as the sun streamed in. She heard the train whistle, and how she hated it. It was a mournful sound. Then she heard music. She looked out on the platform and saw musicians play. The prince had ordered a little band to play a happy song to bid her goodbye. She moved closer to the window as the wind began to blow the snow around. The train chirped and moved out of the station. The music continued, but now it was Josephine's violins that she heard. And tears streamed down her cheeks. Then she saw her prince astride a tall white horse in full uniform. As the train pulled away, he raised his arm in full salute, holding it until the train was gone from sight. It was the end of the affair. And Josephine knew it would never happen to her again. For the rest of her life, she tried to understand what had cast her in that unbelievable love affair. Many years later, around 1971, in her suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel in Hollywood, California, I opened the newspaper to read her notices of her concert the night before and saw the front page story. I turned to her and softly said, "The King of Sweden is dead." She didn't answer, but stared out the window toward Sunset Boulevard for a while, and then got up and went into her bedroom. I went downstairs and asked the switchboard to shut off all telephone calls. I knew that in the quiet of her room, her thoughts were taking her back to that one really wonderful time in her life. She was recalling the full moon fading into dawn, the whistle of the train, and the violins. She came out of her room much later, in the dusk of the day, and we prepared to go to the theater. She never spoke of it or him again.
Chiquita, they adore you here in Rio. Listen to their applause.
But the president of Buenos Aires wants my head on a platter, mon Dieu. It was the Puritans all over again, the demonstrations. I didn't want to leave the stage. Demonstrations have never made me afraid. Quite the opposite.
They've reviewed your movie, Serene de Tropique, in the New York Times. Mayor Walker himself attended the premiere. Walker at a Harlem theater. The wonders never cease.
Well, what did he say, Steve?
Yes, read it, por favor.
Well, after the film, a special stage performance with Sheldon Brooks, Bill Bojangles Robinson, the Berry Brothers, Edith Wilson, and Jazz Lips Richardson went on until the early hours of the next morning.
Ah, yes, but in the dancing times, an insult. It reads, when Negroes began to appear on stage, they imitated the white man imitating them because the public was used to the white man's version. I find it very noticeable in the work of Josephine Baker, who always seems to be playing up to what the public thinks she should be.
And do you want me to return to New York? Things have not changed since I left.
It will be different. Wait and see.
I am ready to return to France. The Lutetia leaves today and we shall be on in Abatino. I am going to see Paris again. It has been 2 years away on the South American tour. It is time to try my luck with the Parisians again. Madame Macaire! Madame Macaire!
Maybe I didn't have to consider like Paris. How was your South American tour?
You're French, Madame Macaire. If you still include, and up and
The first cable ever received from Florence Ziegfeld came in the late 20s. It was a query about her someday appearing in the Ziegfeld Follies. Josephine read it over and over. The world of the theater and the world of politics can but wonder what would have happened if she had thrown the cable away. But in those days, one did not throw cables from Florence Ziegfeld into the trash. They continued with their messages back and forth. Josephine was thrilled to be wanted.
My dear Mr. Ziegfeld, I am sorry to inform you that I cannot accept your offer. I am currently in the middle of my own follies here, as you may know. The Follies Bergère of Paris.
Josephine, the stock market has wiped him out, the crash. And his wife, Billy Burke, is trying to finish what the stock market could not do to him.
Josephine, Mr. Ziegfeld is dead. But a Mr. John Murray Anderson is producing the Follies, and he wants you. It will be the Ziegfeld Follies of 1936. Annie Price and Bob Hope.
Who is this Bob?
Hello. My name is Miss Josephine Vega.
But, Miss Baker, we have no reservation for you.
Hello. My name is Miss Josephine Vega.
But, Miss Baker, we have no reservation for you.
Miss Josephine Vega.
But, Miss Baker, we have no reservation for you.
Miss Josephine Baker.
But, Miss Baker, we have no reservation for you.
no reservation. They were told the same at the Hotel Plaza. They were told the same at the Essex House. The managers at the hotel knew what the problem was, as would have any black living in America at the time. But Josephine didn't understand. In Paris, she was adored.
The U.S. is not a free country, Abatino. They still treat Negroes as if they were dogs. I told you, Abatino, we should not have come here. Things have not changed since I left.
When she had first been contracted, she had been promised co-star billing. When she arrived at the theater, she saw on the marquee Fanny Bryce in Ziegfeld Follies 1936 with Bob Hope and Josephine Baker. Slightly different. She expected a big happy family, like in Friends, but she was doomed to disappointment. She was snubbed by Fanny Bryce, the star of the show. She was snubbed by Billy Berg, Flo Ziegfeld's wife. She was snubbed by Bob Hope. But she went on anyway, because she was a professional, because she was Josephine.
My club in New York, the Chez Josephine Baker. Now they can see me here as they do in Paris.
A cosmopolitan crowd found its way into her club, and she held court with the Duke, Fred Astaire, Cole Porter, Paul Robeson, and Billie Holiday, and many others. And she entertained them nightly until she returned to Paris the following year.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. And welcome to the club Chez Josephine here in New York City. I'm Duke Ellington. Life has two rules, ladies and gentlemen. that you should live by. Rule number 1, never quit. And rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. The city is swinging here tonight, and it's especially swinging here tonight at Club Chez Josephine's in New York. Miss Baker, thank you for having me here. And we do love you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, what about some more applause for the lady of the evening? I came over here tonight from the Apollo Theater to bring you a little of my music. So without further ado, the band and I, we're going to open up our set with Satin Down for your listening and your dancing pleasure, and we do love you madly. One, two, 3, and. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we do love you madly. You know, we are privileged and honored to have with us tonight, gracing the stage of the Chez Josephine Lounge. Back from her recent tour across the US of A, I bring to you, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Lady Day, Miss Billie.
I told her that
have her here. Wonderful treat. Thank you, Miss Holiday. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I've been blessed to have many friends and associates like yourself in the entertainment industry over the years, and I have to be honest with you. She is perhaps one of the best. Now, friends, without further ado, the band and I are going to bring you another one of my favorite compositions. I wrote over 2,000 in my lifetime. So grab a partner, get out there on the dance floor, cut a rug, and remember, always, always remain a class act in life. And good night to you, and we do love you, man. One, two, three, four.
Josephine returned to France before the war broke out, and she hated the Germans. She tried to think of what she could do for her country, for France. In 1937, when she married Jean Léon, she became a French citizen. She was a Maquis, a group of elitists dedicated to the overthrow of the Germans. They were the leaders of the resistance. And over a period of time, they infiltrated nearly every segment of the French population. And because Josephine was married to a Jew, she caught the attention of the Gestapo. Josephine warned Jean Léon not to return. Apparently, he never did.
I joined the resistance. Happily, I would serve France. I had taken a lease on the Chateau de Lyon. And one night, German officers came to search it for any weapons.
We are informed, Madame, that you are hiding weapons in your chateau. What do you say to that?
I say that Monsieur l'officier cannot be serious. Yes, it is true that my grandparents were Indians, but they hung up their tomahawks long ago. And the only dance that I've never taken a part of was the war dance. The Nazi ordered Gary to go to my chateau. And I went on a world tour. London, Rio de Janeiro, Mexico, the Havana. I delivered the original Italian-German code book back to the resistance. I knew it was Gary's plan to execute me that night. I also knew that there was a laundry chute right off the powder room in my chateau. So I excused myself to powder my nose. But I had already eaten the cyanide-laced fish. I only remember making it to the powder room, opening the laundry chute and jumping into it. The resistance was waiting for me. I've been told that I had to have my stomach pumped, and that I didn't regain consciousness for over a month. But then I went on to entertain the troops.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you tonight? Good. I'm Sophie Tucker, and I know I'm hot tonight. And it's hot here in Havana. of the Red Hot Mamas. I'm going to open up the show for you tonight, and then I got a little surprise for you. Tonight, and I'd like to introduce him to you. Catherine Dunham, ladies and gentlemen, just back from her tour to Tahiti, and Miss Josephine Baker.
This is their number 26 years. Only this time, I'm happy to be here. Under these circumstances, where whites and blacks can come together to see me perform. Here in Miami.
And Josephine toured the U.S. again. All over, she was quoted as saying, "I see a growing unity among Negroes and fair-minded whites who realize how costly this business of racial discrimination is to our national and international security. We must fight, and there are many who are fighting." At every club, she insisted that there be black musicians in every orchestra, and no discrimination in the sale of tickets. Because they were unable to make this guarantee in St. Louis, she turned down an engagement there. In Los Angeles, the 10 rows reserved for VIP couldn't hold all the celebrities that wanted to see Josephine. Ethel Barrymore joined in line along with the Smiths and Joneses, who had come to applaud their Josephine. Side of the Atlantic. My greatest desire, she assured them, will always be to see my people happy in this country.
You know that I have lived a long time and have come a long way. And you must know that what I did originally for myself. Then later, as these things began to happen to me, I wondered if they were happening to you as well. And I knew that they must be. And as I continued to do the things that I did, they began to beat me. They beat me with their pens. I was frightened. So I ran far, far away to France. There I was happy. I could go to any restaurant that I wanted to. I could drink water from any place that I wanted to. And I didn't have to use a colored-only toilet either. But when I came back to New York, I had other blows. They wouldn't let me check into good hotels. And I thought, my God, I am Miss Josephine Baker. And if they're doing this to me, then what are they doing to the other people of America? So I opened my mouth and I screamed. And when you scream, my friends, you will be heard. You young people now, you must go to school. You must get an education, and you must learn to protect yourself with those pens. I am not a young woman now. And there's not much fire left burning inside of me. But before it goes out, I want to use what's left to burn the fire inside of you. So that you can carry on and do the things that I have done. I thank you, and God bless you. And may He continue to bless you long after I am gone.
Josephine appeared at the Teatro Bovino in Paris on April 8, 1975. She was 69 years old. But when she put on her gold costume, with the sequins, the feathers, and stepped out on that stage, the years melted away. And she was young Josephine Baker once again. Josephine Baker was given a full-scale 12-gun salute state funeral, the only woman of American birth to be so honored in France. Thousands of people lined the route and crowded the square to say farewell. From her tomb, you can see the blue of the ocean, but she's not there. She's on stage at the Folies Bergère, at the Palladium, at the Opera in Rio. She's on stage at Carnegie Hall. If you don't believe me, go to one of those places. When it's quiet, and the house and the stage are dark, you'll hear her. The wind will carry her laugh to you. And if you truly believe, you'll see her. You'll see all those feathers and sequins. And she'll smile and bow. And listen carefully. You might hear those 1,000 violins playing those haunting melodies. And maybe, just maybe, while you're watching, a prince will come. And he'll take her in his arms, and they'll wrap themselves in fur, and they'll dance.